Hey there, it's Pete Thorne. I made this video recently to accompany a recent blog post that is going to be up on the Celestion website. And so this video will be posted there as well. I'm also going to post this video up on my YouTube, which is maybe where you're watching it right now, just because it's good basic recording information. So I figure it can, live both on the Celestion site and on my YouTube. So the subject of the blog and the subject of this video is all about how to get truly clean sounds, if that's what you want to do, when recording with a tube amplifier, speaker out into a load box, like my reactive load here, line out of the load box into a recording interface, and adding an impulse response for speaker simulation. So why did I feel it was necessary to make a video about this? Well, I've seen a few posts online where people are making an observation or maybe even a complaint sometimes that they're playing their amp in the room, they say, and it sounds clean, and then they take the speaker output and they plug it into the load box and run into their interface out of there and add the IR, and now they say that they can hear some distortion present in the signal, a little bit of futzy stuff or a little bit of clipping that they didn't notice with the amp just in the room. So I wanted to make a video and demonstrate what I think is going on with this, because I've done extensive testing where, I'm listening to a mic'd up speaker, a mic'd up amplifier, and then I'll run into the load box and pull up an impulse response and listen to that. And I can 100% guarantee that these load boxes aren't adding any extra distortion. So I've tried them from 2 Notes and the Sur box and all kinds of them, and they don't make the amp distort anymore or add any clipping or anything like that to the signal. I believe what people are hearing when they notice this phenomenon is simple as this. They're sitting back in the room playing a tube amp, and they're off axis from their amplifier or the speaker, usually at least a few feet away. The amp's generally down on the floor, and so they're not hearing, it's not like you're sticking your ear right up in the speaker, right? So you're also getting the complex interactions that whatever room you're playing that amplifier in are adding to the signal. And it's just kind of a complex, rich sound when you're listening to an amplifier in a room like that. And it's off axis from your ears. So the second that you take a microphone and you stick it up into a speaker, you're going to hear things, first of all, very, very much more direct signal, right? And you're also going to hear things in that signal that you didn't notice with just, say, your ears back in the room. Just certain things are going to pop out by sticking a mic right up on a speaker. It's a much more clinical sound. And one of those things that you might notice is, there's a little bit of drive in the signal that I just wasn't really hearing. It's exactly the same when you run through a load box and an impulse response. It's the same sound, same amount of distortion. So I thought I'd make a clips to demonstrate this, actual guitar parts. So what I've done is recorded just some simple guitar playing, the mic back in the room to kind of simulate what the amp sounds like in the room. Then I went and took that same microphone, I stuck it up on the speaker of the amplifier, okay, and recorded the exact same guitar part. And I want you to listen really, really closely for a little bit of distortion that's present in the signal. I purposely set the amp kind of on the edge of breakup so that, it's just a nice full sound when you're playing with the amp back in the room, but stick the mic up on the speaker, it's that much more clinical, brighter sound, and you're going to hear a little bit of the overdrive in the sound that I'm talking about. Then I'm going to show you what the amp sounds like through a load box and an impulse response, exact same settings on the amplifier. And then I'm also going to show you what it sounds like with no impulse response, because then you're really going to hear the kind of terrible clinical sound of a guitar amplifier with no speaker, like as though you were plugging it right into, say, a hi-fi PA cabinet or something like that. And it becomes very apparent just how much overdrive is actually in a signal when you're not listening through a guitar speaker, which is a great big filter that rolls off everything above 5K basically and actually masks a lot of overdrive. Okay, so let's get to it. Here's some sound examples. All right, there you have it. In that first clip, I had the mic back in the room. I was trying to kind of simulate what it sounds like when most of us just play an amp in a room, you know, and you're off axis and you got all that room sound mixed in and stuff. And it can be hard to hear exactly what's going on with the guitar tone in those situations. But as soon as you take that microphone, like in the second clip, I did, you know, put it right up on the speaker, you're going to hear that real clinical representation of the amplifier, and you're going to hear any kind of, you know, a little bit of grind or a little bit of futz from the preamp of the amplifier, that kind of thing. And it's going to be there really apparent in the mic signal. Likewise, when I was running into the load box and impulse response in the next clip, I'm sure you noticed that that amount of grind was exactly the same, stayed constant. It's a very, very similar sound to the mic'd up amp, and you know, the exact same amount of overdrive. So my goal there was to show that the load box isn't adding any drive or anything like that. So in the final clip, I took the impulse response off, and in that clip you can hear the amount of, you know, grind in the signal. It's a terrible, terrible sound to listen to a guitar amp, in my opinion, with no speaker. But it does serve to represent that sometimes when we perceive a sound as clean or almost clean, there's actually a fair amount of drive going on, and it's really getting masked by you know, the relatively sort of lo-fi guitar speakers that we're also used to using. They roll off at 5K or so, and that is going to, you know, take away a world of fits that lives up above 5K up in those upper frequencies. So what I want to do now is show you a clip of where I backed the preamp gain down on the amp and really cleaned it up so that it's basically a clean sound. Okay, so let's do that. For those that like a completely clean sound, now that sound is cleaned right up. I dropped the preamp gain on the amp, and now there's none of that futz at all in the signal. But might sound a little anemic now, you know? So the one thing you can do is go ahead and crank up that preamp gain a little bit, and don't be afraid if there's a little bit of grind in your clean sound. That can be kind of cool. But if you really do want it clean, and yet you'd like to solve the problem of it sounding a little bit anemic, a nice thing you can do is add a compressor after the fact in your digital audio workstation and kind of pump up the overall average volume and thicken up the sound a little bit, so it's got some of the character of when we had a little bit of grind in the signal, but yet is still completely clean. So I'm going to use a UA, Universal Audio 1176 Revision A plug-in compressor in Logic right now, add it to the signal, and let's check out what that sounds like. Okay, so I like that sound I was able to get using the 1176 plugin from UA. I had an 8:1 ratio going, and I was using kind of a medium attack and release setting, and I just played with it until I could get a fairly natural sound that wasn't too obviously compressed, I don't think. And yet I was getting about 8 to 10 dB of gain reduction on the peaks, so just got to play with the settings until you get the sound you want. But yeah, I feel like I was able to pump up the overall volume of the guitar sound, the kind of the average volume, and get a little bit more thickness back into the sound that was kind of akin to when I had the preamp gain on the amplifier set higher, and yet I was able to keep the amp completely crystal clean. So, moral of the story with this video is that just know that, you know, listening to an amp with a mic right up on the speaker or through a load box and impulse response is a more clinical way to hear your amplifier than just listening to it when you're just playing in a room, and you're going to notice things that you might not notice otherwise. So if you want to get a truly, truly clean sound, you may have to back down the preamp gain more than you might have thought. And you can bring back some of that, some of the lost feel and fullness and stuff, possibly using a nice compressor. All right, I hope this video was helpful, and take care, you guys. I am Pete Thorne, over and out.